The following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
Call to order the October 22nd meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I'll recognize Councilmember Bush for our ceremonial opening. Ms. Bush.
Thank you, Mayor. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are now at item 3, which is adoption of the agenda, and there are several changes, even last-minute changes. I meant to say item 1.3, not 3. Council has received a couple of requests, actually 3 requests, to amend the evening's agenda. The first request is by the applicant at Chapel Hill Road and Lake Drive, rezoning 15 REZ05. The item was tabled at our September 24th, 2015 council meeting. And if it's the pleasure of the council, if it's the pleasure of the council to hear the applicant's request for this item, we first need to remove it from the table. Is there a motion to do so?
Do we want to hear the request?
The request is to table it.
Because I thought it was already tabled.
To remove it from the
We have to remove it
from the table.
And then table it to a specific date, November 19th.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion?
Yes, explain our confusion, because we have citizens who've requested this item to be referred back to P&Z because, I'm correct, right? They want to go back to P&Z because they were misdesignated during the P&Z discussion as a townhome community, when in fact they're a single-family home community. And they would just like to have a fair shake at having the P&Z make the decision based on the true conditions surrounding the property.
Well, before we can decide what we're going to do, we first have to take it off the table, which is what this motion's about.
Take it off the table, but then we don't have to go and table it.
That's the applicant's request.
I see.
And so first we've got to take it off the table or we can't do anything.
Okay.
So there's a motion on the table. Any other questions, discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now we have that request and others that I'm going to read in just a minute. If council's pleasure is to honor the applicant's request to table it to the November 19th meeting, that could be one thing. If the council's pleasure is to send it back to P&Z, that could be another thing. So whatever council would
Make
like.
a motion to table it until the November 19th council meeting.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion.
So I want to go back to the to the item that Councilmember Robinson brought up. There is a request by a citizen that said that they were misclassified, and I understand that town staff is here to speak to that. Maybe we should just quickly talk about what that is, since it's off the table and we can now talk about it, because I don't want to move it to table again if we're going to potentially push it back.
It would be unlikely that November 19th would be time enough if it has to go to P&Z.
Right.
It's your choice whether or not to send it back to P&Z, but what the applicant has proposed is to meet with the adjacent property owners again and to offer a new condition that is a more restrictive condition that would address their concerns. When it was presented to the Planning and Zoning Board, staff had identified the adjacent neighborhood as a townhome community, which would have required a lesser buffer. Because it's a detached residential community, it actually increases the buffer requirement. The citizen who contacted staff and the council members said, knowing that, they might have liked to have discussed even further steps the applicant might have wanted to take, to offer a zoning condition that even exceeded those standards. So that discussion is yet to take place between the applicant and the homeowners in the adjacent neighborhood. But what's being proposed by the applicant is to introduce a new zoning condition that would address those neighbors' concerns. So their request is to go to November rather than to go back to the Planning and Zoning Board.
And we have the right at that time, if we feel something is not being handled properly, to do what you're saying, right?
Yes, but when we have an applicant make a substantial change to his application, then we have often said that we want P&Z to give us input based on this kind of new project. That was one thing that we've talked about in the past is after it goes to P&Z, we want to be voting on something that's similar to what P&Z looked at. And
You've got your Gale hat on.
It is my Gale hat. So given the fact that the citizens are asking us to send it back to P&Z, it seems like a perfect opportunity to give the applicant an opportunity first to meet with the citizens, decide what would be the appropriate conditions, make those changes, and then go to P&Z and have the case heard. So I would prefer to send it to P&Z rather than have it just tabled.
Other comments? The motion on the table is to table it.
Right. My own, channeling Gail as well, and the consistency idea that we tried to do at this table, even though I feel that it's a more strict and will actually give them a larger buffer, and I think it's a good thing. I do think from a consistency perspective, they should get their, day in court and their day there, although P&Z also approved this, right, recommended approval with the smaller buffer, right? So I'm a little torn. I actually support what you're saying. I think in general, from a consistency perspective, I'd like to see it go back to P&Z, but I can't imagine also at the same time, and the fact that we put staff and the applicant and the property owners through so much that we'll get anything different. In fact, if anything, I think we'll get a stronger recommendation from P&Z because, it's just going to make a bigger buffer.
But if they thought this was a townhome community coming next to a townhome community as opposed to coming next to a single-family community, maybe that would make a difference.
Maybe, but they'll actually get a bigger buffer. So I actually don't support the motion, but support what you're saying. But I wanted to make sure that everybody realized that the situation actually is better for them from some perspectives, from a buffer perspective.
So the only thing I would add to this to create more confusion is we're actually doing a discussion item here before we have an agenda. We can continue and get this one out of the way and then adopt an agenda, or we can discuss it later.
Well, since we're this far down the road,
we have a motion on the table.
Let's just finish it out.
So the motion, Hermione, is to table it to the next.
Till the
November
meeting.
19th. We're ready for
Which, I would echo Ms. Bush's comments. I'm not sure what's going to change kicking this back to P&Z other than time. They are actually getting a much bigger buffer and an opaque buffer out of it. I don't see the decision changing at P&Z. I really don't.
Okay.
I think there's an opportunity for the applicant and the adjacent homeowners to get together and work things out and come up with additional conditions. Then if that doesn't bear fruit and doesn't work out, then maybe we can address that at that time. But I don't see the reason to start the process all over again.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
No. Oh, geez.
Motion fails.
3 and 3.
3-3. So we can add this as a discussion item. It's under discussion, I think, already.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we've removed it from the table. It's still on the agenda for discussion, and we can discuss it after we adopt an agenda. Two other amendments requested to the agenda are staff requesting an addition of an amended annexation resolution to set a public hearing, and this would be discussion item 6.8. And then the West High South rezoning, 14 REZ 19, the applicant has requested that this be tabled to November 19th. And if council's satisfied with those amendments to the agenda, I would entertain a motion to adopt the amended agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And for those, I know there are people here to speak on West High. We have Public Speaks Out, which will allow you to speak on anything that's not a public hearing. And so you can still speak on that topic. We're not chasing you away, but we are letting you know that we're not making a decision on this item tonight. So if you have other pressing matters, you can always come back in November. Okay, so now we move to item 2. We're at agenda item 2.1, the Cary Band Day Proclamation. And it's my pleasure to invite the Cary High School Band representatives to join me at the podium. I keep waiting for you guys to do a salute. Sandy, I know very well. Good to see you again. This is, when we think about Cary and think about all the things that have happened in Cary over the years, this is one of the things that Cary is known for. Cary is known for Cary Band Day. This is the 57th annual Cary Band Day. That's a long time, almost as just a little bit younger than me. So that's a real long time, and older than most of you up there at the table, except for Jack.
No.
But Cary Band Day is a very special day. I've been to the competitions many times, and I've thoroughly enjoyed them, even though I don't play a musical instrument. It's very entertaining, and I would invite all Cary citizens and all council members to please attend Cary Band Day. It's a wonderful thing. And to recognize that event, I would like to read a proclamation. Whereas the Cary High School Band has proven its musical and marching abilities throughout the years by continuing achievements of both national and regional recognition for its accomplishments. And whereas members of the Cary High School Band have brought much honor to the town of Cary and its citizens while maintaining high scholastic aptitudes. And whereas music plays an increasingly important role in our world today. It's the language of all people and one of the greatest forces in creating peace and harmony. And whereas in 2011, Cary High School Band was named Grand Champion at Cleveland High School Competition, the Clinton High School Band Day, and was a Bands of America Grand National semifinalist, placing them in the top 30 bands competing at nationals last year. At the 2013 Pinecrest Invitational, the Cary Marching Band won Outstanding Music, General Effects, Color Guards, Percussion, and Drum Majors. Whereas in 2014, the Cary High School Band was the Grand Champion of the Bassett Bingo Invitational, winning Beat Music, Best Marching Band, and Best General Effects. The band has also been a Bands of America Regionals finalists 5 straight years, as well as Bands of America Grand National semifinalists in 2011 and again in 2014. The Cary High School Band has been selected one of the 10 bands in the nation out of 150 to perform in the 2016 Macy's Thanksgiving Parade. Can't wait to watch it. Woo! Now, therefore, I, Harold Weinberg, Jr., Mayor of the town of Cary, North Carolina, on behalf of the entire Cary Town Council, do hereby proclaim Saturday, October 31st, 2015, Halloween, as 57th Cary Band Day, and urge all of the citizens of Cary and surrounding areas to join together in honoring and supporting the long-standing Cary tradition proclaimed this 22nd day of October 2015. Mr. Minnie.
We appreciate the Town Council's continued support of this event, and on behalf of Cary High School and the Cary community, we invite all the citizens to partake. We are praying for great weather. If you know, the last couple of weeks ago, like almost everybody in the whole state, their first 2 shows got rained out. So everybody's dying to get out there and show what they've been able to put on the field. We have 38 bands coming. Right now the show is supposed to start at 10 a.m. and will be lasting till about close to 10:30, as well as the James Madison University from Virginia. Their marching band of about 400, I believe, is coming as well. So it should be a great exhibition, a great day. We look forward to it, and just appreciate everyone's support and hope you can make it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minnick.
Thank you.
And Don, since you practically live across the street, you're very well aware of all the abilities of the Cary Town Band.
And Band Day never ends at 10:30.
I have been there after midnight several times.
Which is a good thing.
Yes, that's true. It's a great competition. We're now at agenda item 2.2. Town Attorney Simpson will report on a settlement between Reedus LLC and the Town of Cary. Ms. Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor. As you said, this is to report a settlement of a dispute between Reedus LLC, Twin Lakes LLC, and the town that has resulted in the conveyance of the parcel that contains the lakes and the payment of $200,000 and some other items to the town, and a copy of it is available on the agenda.
Very good. Thank you. We now move to item 2.3, and Interim Town Manager Bajork will present an operational update. Mr. Bajork.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask Carl Knapp, our Budget Director, to come up and give us a recap of how we did last year.
Good evening, Council. We are presenting to you tonight the final results of our revenue for the last fiscal year, which seems like it ended quite a while ago, but as far as our revenue is concerned, we continue to receive revenue from the state through September, and so we've only just now been able to make a final accounting of our revenue for the year. As you can see on the chart, we wound up ahead of our budgeted revenue projections by about $6.4 million, or 4.4%. We try to target that our revenues will stay within 5% of our projections, hopefully on the green side rather than the red side, which has never really been a problem. And this year we stayed within that. Well, no, I've done something. There you go. You can see where the changes were. This is familiar to what we saw at the end of the third quarter largely. We received some large additional revenues in the area of franchise tax, property tax, and sales tax. On both the sales tax and franchise tax side, a portion of that is due to increased economic growth in the state, but a portion of it is also due to the legislative fiscal staff underestimating the effect that tax reform would have last year. Fortunately, they underestimated it in our favor rather than theirs, and so the town wound up with some more money there, all of which is expected to continue as part of our revenue stream going into this year. Looking at the bottom of that chart, you can see the familiar red bar under permits and fees. This is a situation we looked at throughout the year where we had a slowdown in the growth of building within Cary, and that resulted in a lower amount. You can see some of those conditions there. We had expected a slowdown in revenue, but we did not expect it to be nearly this extreme. We did not have any major non-residential or multifamily projects the way we have for each of the last several years, which resulted in a decrease in revenue from that. Single-family residential was also down as well and shifted more to non-detached homes, which tend to bring in a lower amount of revenue. So that is where we stand at the end of the year, looking in good shape, and happy to take any questions you may have.
Any questions from council? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Thank you, Mr. Bajort.
Mayor, could I just have a couple of comments? One thing on that last slide, you could see while revenue is down, inspections were up, which is a frustrating thing for us operationally in terms of we're still having to make those inspections. Just so we are looking at just how that all comes into play there. I have quick, just like to give you an update in 5 areas just real quickly. One is our downtown and economic development. 2 companies made announcements recently that they were making Cary their home. One was Align Technologies, which will create 100 jobs in Cary over the next 5 years and invest an additional $4 million. DB Global Technologies will create an additional 250 jobs and invest $9 million by the end of next year. You know, this just shows the great cooperation and coordination that we have with our Chamber of Commerce, in particular Howard Johnson and Kyle Gray. They work tirelessly for the town and to make it what it is, and it's great to see these things coming through. Co-Founders Capital that make their home in the Cary Theater have 12 companies currently working in that space. And they have raised over invested over $1 million in companies. The majority of those, in 7 companies, the majority of those companies are right here in downtown Cary that they're investing in. So again, just what we were after with that lease. And finally, the town closed on 2 properties, the final townhome at 208 Walker Street, which completed the land assembly around the downtown park, and the 207 South Harrison Avenue, which also ties the current library site to South Harrison, making it a great development opportunity. On an operations update, I am proud to report that our police chief, or our fire chief, Chief Kane, has been elected by his peers to the board of directors of the Center for Public Safety Excellence. This group promotes continuous quality improvements of the fire and emergency service agencies that serve communities worldwide. They knew what we already knew, that he was top-notch, and I think it really says a lot for our Cary Fire Department to have their chief appointed to such a position. Also, during the last annual reporting period, and hopefully your dinner has time to set on your stomachs, the town has had no wastewater permit compliance violations and only 7 overflows, totaling a total of 3,366 gallons last year. To put this in perspective, the town maintains over 930 miles of sewer lines and conveys approximately 6.4 billion, that's billion with a B, gallons of waste each year. So that's a great achievement from our Public Works Director, Scott Hecht, and our Utilities Director, Jamie Revels. They do a great job, and their teams do a great job. And finally, the town had the opportunity to have a random RIS audit on our 2006 variable rate general obligation bonds. We came out smelling like roses on this, and once again, I think this is the second one that we've had in the past few years, and I think it's just another testament to the great staff that Karen Mills, our finance director, has put together, that they would go through these audits and coming out with all the T's crossed and I's dotted. Moving to infrastructure, Councilman Smith would be glad to know that the park down south, Jack Smith Park, is making great progress. That along with our new Fire Station 2 downtown, and we expect to have both of those completed by the end of the year. Our legislative agenda, I guess the best thing I could say is the General Assembly has completed their work from the long session. There were several bills passed that affected the town and how we can regulate development. These actions have driven and will continue to drive future changes to our town ordinances that we'll be bringing forward to you. And finally, just a real quick check on our development process. As of October 1st, the population of the town is 154,671, which is an increase of 2.7% from this time last year, right where we were shooting for. There were 22 development projects approved last quarter, and our small business liaison group that we've created a couple years ago is just really busy helping small businesses. They had 105 cases this past quarter and are doing great things and helping people through the process there. I'd be glad to answer any questions, but that's the update for the month.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Bajor. Okay, that takes us to item 3, which is Public Speaks Out. Our next agenda item has instructions for speaking on this forum on the printed agenda. And if you would like to speak, please take a seat into the rows to my right that are shown as reserved and follow the instructions on the agenda. Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes each for their comments, and speakers may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing. I will have to enforce the 3-minute time limit to be fair to all of our speakers. There's a timer on the podium, and when the green light turns yellow, that means you have 30 seconds remaining. And when the yellow light expires, there will be a flashing red light. And at that time, the speaker should immediately conclude their comments. And if you don't, I will interrupt you, not trying to be rude, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers. I thank all of the speakers in advance for adhering to a 3-minute time limit. And I ask groups have a spokesperson to speak on behalf of the group and to reduce repetitive comments. I thank everyone in our audience for respecting that this is a business meeting. Please do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, or anything else that may distract from this meeting. So now's the time for Public Speaks Out, and I would invite our first speaker forward, and you're up there.
Thank you. My name is Larry Ballas from Chatham County. I've been speaking in front of the Town Council for probably close to 20 years, plus or minus a few days, ever since Coca Booth was mayor. That's a lot of people who are on the council now probably may not even know who he is, but I do. And I've been talking all the way up till tonight. And 20 years is a long time to come here and talk about development expansion into the western part of Wake County and into the eastern part of Chatham County, which I was most concerned with. And I presented many, many different arguments. I thought I did it in a way that was appreciated by the council. At least I hope it was, as opposed to someone like a person named Patrick who would come down here and just, well, we all know what he did. Over the years, then, development still occurred, but it occurred in a respectful way on both sides, I believe. We asked for certain things, got them. You wanted to approach Chatham County, and we let you. About 10 years ago now, plus or minus a few, there was a development that was coming into Chatham County again, and that was Weldon Ridge, I believe it was. And at that time, there was a church and a school and a daycare, I believe, that was going to be built there. And that project evidently got sold to a developer. The church didn't want to build at that time. And at that time, I came down here and I pointed fingers at a couple council members, specifically Jack Smith and Jennifer Robinson, because the only reason that they said they were coming into Chatham County and annex up there was because of the church and the school, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just reminded them of it, and I became a little bit belligerent about it, I believe, up here, although my belligerence is always with a smile on the inside. So tonight I wanted to come down and just give praise to Jennifer Robinson and Jack Smith for sticking by their word all these years. That is, now we're going to have a church set up in that particular area in Chatham County, or the border of Wake County and Chatham County. So I want to be able to point to you now, Jennifer Robinson, and say thank you for keeping your word on having a church built up there. And I want to point to Jack Smith and say thank you for keeping your word when you said to the developer, go get a church or a school or whatever, because you kept your word. And that's very important to the discussion that goes on between Chatham County people and the people on the council here in Cary. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ballas. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Al Cohen, and I'm with a company called JMG Group, and we have been partnering up with the city for the last couple of years to assist them, the Parks and Recreation, with Doug and Lyman, to bring some innovative and some new events into the city. We were working with the task force, the Dream Fest weekend last year, an event that's been taking place, I guess, for the last 17 years here in the city. And last year we were able to come and be a part of the planning committee. And we brought in last year Naomi King, which is the sister-in-law of the late Martin Luther King. We had her at the cinema and the theater there in Cary. And it was a very fantastic event, exciting event. People are still talking about it to this day. So this year, coming in 2016, we have the opportunity to bring in Martin Luther King III, the son of the late Dr. Martin Luther King, to Cary at the Cary Town Center, the Arts Center. And I just want to let the city know that we're looking to do some real exciting things that can bring some real national exposure to this region, to this city, to see all the great work and the great things that are being done here in the city, even with the new residents that are coming, that the residents as well as the business as well as the city as a whole can benefit from these new events that are coming. And I just want everybody to be aware of what's taking place is during the week of January, the week of the 15th, 16th. That day in particular is the 16th, on a Saturday, where he will come and speak. And the reason why I'm so passionate about it, because if you just think for a second, the nation will be celebrating his father, this civil rights leader, the icon, Dr. Martin Luther King, and to have the opportunity of the son, the namesake, being here in that city on that Saturday, where there'll be a lot of national attention from the CNN, Fox News, because usually they follow the kids during the week of their father's birthday. And I think it's something that we all need to rally together around and really support and get on board with this particular project. And we just want to thank the mayor and the Parks and Recreation for just opening it up, not only their hearts, but just opening up, to the idea of bringing in events like this and setting up, where it's easy for everyone to come and be a part of some new things and exciting things that are taking place in the city. So thank you for this time, and we hope that you'll be a part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the Town Council. My name is Isabel Maddox, P.O. Box 946, Raleigh, 27602. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Assembler Company. I sent a letter to each of you yesterday by email. I hope that you received it. I want to reiterate our position on the proposed modifications to the connectivity ordinance in Cary. We agree that the ordinance does need to be modified, but we don't think the proposed modification goes quite far enough. It needs to address a situation where a commercial development is right beside a residential development. I went, along with my colleague, Belinda Topp, to the Planning and Zoning Board Monday night, and they had a very good discussion on the ordinance. And I think the general consensus of the board was that they hoped the council would look at some further modifications. Jerry Jensen of the staff suggested that the staff could possibly do a study and specifically looking at the possibility of giving council more authority to make connectivity decisions at the zoning stage, where a mixed-use overlay district was filed for with a preliminary development plan. We think that's a good situation for the council to take that authority, because it's a situation where you have all the information you need to make the analysis. You've got a fairly well thought out development plan, and you have a traffic study. So you've got the pieces to allow you to make the decision. We feel like in these circumstances where you've got commercial beside residential, it's really appropriate to have a thoughtful analysis, weigh the pros and cons, and make a decision. And we think it would be really helpful to both neighbors and commercial developers to make that decision at the zoning stage and make it in a legislative capacity, which you're certainly empowered to do. Right now, the staff, there's a sort of a one-size-fits-all ordinance requiring connectivity really for everybody, except for in a couple of limited circumstances such as topo and natural features that would come in the way of a connection. We think that there needs to be some other situations where it's considered, and we think the timing of it needs to happen sooner in the process, which would be at the rezoning phase rather than the site plan. And I appreciate your consideration of that. What we would like, I realize that this comes before council again on November 19th. We would ask that you request that your staff do the analysis to tell you what that would look like if that decision was brought back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox. Next speaker, please.
Hello, thank you. My name is Brian Dial, and I actually live in the neighborhood that would be adjoining to the brand new mixed-use property that she's referring to, the new Publix shopping center at the corner of Carpenter Fire Station Road and Green Level Church Road. And I also would just like to second what she said. It would be very beneficial to know if those streets will have to be connected, because the way that it is written and drawn out right now, none of the neighbors can support the new shopping center because we would have a commercial property actually adjoining to, connecting to our neighborhood streets. The neighborhood streets are streets that currently allow for parallel parking, and it's already very difficult to maneuver around. And because the exit that is along Carpenter Fire Station Road, you cannot turn left on Carpenter Fire Station Road, we would have a lot of traffic that would actually cut through our neighborhood to then go out. And so I would, again, just like to second what she said as far as it being decided at the time of rezoning rather than at the time of site plan approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Ross Broadbeck. I've been up here a couple times before about West High. I feel a little bit less nervous now because it sounds like the pressure's off, but I'll still come up here and speak just for a little tiny bit. The first thing I want to say is that all the neighborhoods in this area do think that there is a significant adverse impact. And I think it's pretty cool that it's been probably over a year now that we've been going through this. And members from all those boards, members from all these neighborhoods, still involved, still have opinions, still want to write the council, still want to talk to the council, still want to talk to the people who are on the boards, and still think that, frankly, this is a bad idea. So, that tells me something, and it makes me feel pretty good about this area, regardless of the outcome. I think people are very interested in this, and I think they clearly have opinions. The only other thing is that the only person who thinks that this is not a significant adverse impact is the developer who wants to put this in. And, maybe that doesn't mean that much, but I think when you do take this into account in your decision, I think you should think about that, because I don't think that you've heard from any citizens who have said, yes, we agree. You haven't had any boards or neighborhoods come up here and say, you know what, this is a good idea. We agree with you. Like I said, the only person who's saying that is the person who wants to put the houses in there. So I think that's something you should consider. And the second thing is I just want to talk a little bit about that light at West High and Cary Parkway, the signal warrant. And, again, the pressure's off, so I'm not going to do too much here. But, I want to mention the NCDOT letter that is provided as part of this, where it says that the NCDOT, and I'll quote, does not allow, based on projections, only actual field volumes. And what that means is they will not allow any warrant, any signal to go in unless there are actual field volumes of traffic at that intersection only. And when I look at the Kimley-Horn study and I see projections and I see cut-through projections on the Kimley-Horn study that was provided as part of this, to me that means that there will not be actual traffic at that intersection. And if we are saying that people are cutting through these neighborhoods and that we need to put a light there to stop them, well, if there's no light, then people are going to keep cutting through these neighborhoods. And the volume at that light, where there is no light, is not going to change. So when the guy walks out there from NCDOT and measures, he's going to say, look at this, no volume, can't put it in. So I would hate to see that happen. I would hate to see that happen, and I would hate to see that happen in this area. Like I said, again, really, because we're looking back at this railroad issue. And again, this isn't like somebody's fault, or this isn't something that's going to happen. I'm not expecting the railroad thing to happen. But this is another time where the neighborhoods are feeling like here's another promise that's being made. But when you look at the numbers and you look at the studies and you look at the words that are being put on paper, it seems like that's not going to happen. So I've only got 10 seconds left, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Bill Cairns. I live at 1604 Old London Way in Apex. I'm also going to address the West High rezoning. We, on Old London Way, when the railroad crossing that Ross just mentioned did not happen, we've become the conduit for all of the traffic in the entire area heading south. In our neighborhood, it was never designed to accept this kind of traffic and this kind of speed. We have had a pedestrian crossing put in. We have a speed bump. We've tried signs. We've tried police patrols, all to try to limit the speeds, and we still have neighbors calling Apex Police to do some patrolling. If this rezoning occurs, we're going to pick up about an additional 125 homes coming south between the Elstar community, which is already under construction, and the proposed new community. Old London Way just plain cannot handle the traffic. We have short driveways. We back right out into the street. It's dangerous. We have children playing in their front yards. We respectfully submit to you that if this does get passed, that council makes every effort, if at all possible, to make sure that the proposed collector street that I heard about in the planning meeting is implemented as a legitimate collector street, one that is easily marked, wide enough, and encourages people to use it, not a little back road connection that people may or may not find. We need the relief from this. We just cannot absorb the traffic anymore. I hope you take into consideration from what we're seeing is that connector is going to have some difficulty. There's a historic property out there. There is property to be purchased, and there is the connection to Apex to be dealt with. So in light of all that, we would just request that you please consider our point of view and take that into consideration when you do discuss this the next time it comes up for the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Carl Molfinger. I live at 404 Royal Tower Way, which is in Bishopsgate. What I've heard through all the discussion, all the meetings, is they talk about we have a traffic problem or a connection problem. And what I'd suggest to you is we really don't. What we have is an infrastructure problem. There's simply inadequate infrastructure in that area to support more traffic. If you look at the original long-term Cary Town plan for roads, West High is supposed to connect to Davis Drive. It does not, it won't, that's fine, it's over. But the fact is, in my opinion, it really does make that part of the long-term plan inadequate or obsolete. And since we have the Imagine Cary project going on, which is basically addressing land use plans, I can't be the only person that thinks that the existing one is obsolete, right, or we wouldn't be doing all that. And I'd suggest to you that without knowing how that's going to come out, it would be difficult to make a real good decision on what to do with that area. To that end, too, and Bill was talking about there being a connector street out of the new development onto Salem Church Road. If one Googles Town of Cary Collector Street and look at the definitions of it, there's really three, I guess, a minor, a major, and a major alternate. But two of those three talk about 35 feet wide, 35 miles an hour, bike paths. One has 0 driveways feeding it. One has minimal, like 160 feet apart, which has in no way reflective of the plans that we've seen for this new development. So that's not apparently what they're talking about. There's the minor one, still has a lot of restrictions in width, but it's not a subdivision street. So either the development would have a real, legal collector street going through it, or it would have a windy subdivision street, which wouldn't relieve traffic at all, right? Because people just wouldn't use it. Also remember, we're dumping, if people use that, you're dumping traffic out onto Salem Church Road, which is, if you try to get up Davis Drive, is nearly impossible. But while you're collecting people in the new area and putting them out on Salem Church, you're also collecting people from Salem Church and bringing them through our neighborhood. There's all that development that's in Apex, but it's on Salem Church Road. There's townhouses going in, there's homes going in. All of those people who live there.
I'm sorry to have to interrupt you. Your time is expired.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
If you have additional comments you would like to leave with the town clerk, she'll make sure that we get copies of them.
Thank you. Sir.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm Marguerite Murray. I'm a resident at 206 Kettlebridge Drive, which is right next to Apex Lake. And I'm here to talk about traffic in the neighborhood. And the reason that I'm concerned about it is pedestrian-based. It's interesting. There's been some communication online over the last 24 hours in preparation for some people from our neighborhood coming to the meeting. This problem with cut-through traffic through our neighborhood from Lake Pine to Cary Parkway, you can see it's the arrows on the map, was identified in 1990 when the neighborhood was originally built. And since that time, we've had 3 different studies completed. We've had an educational speed awareness sign put up by the police. We've had 4 different neighborhood representatives speaking with the council or the department, our local department for transportation, and I myself have been working with the traffic department for 2 years. So the context for this is that Kettlebridge Drive is a main thoroughfare between the front and the back of our neighborhood. At the front of the neighborhood, at the furthest extent, that's where our pool is and our tennis courts and all of our community gatherings take place. It's also a primary bus stop, and it's also an avenue for visitors from other neighborhoods to come in and access Apex Lake. Right now, there's 30% of the traffic coming in on Kettlebridge from Lake Pine turns on Glen Buckley, and they fly. So I know we've had traffic studies done, and they all say they're averaging about 31 miles per hour. But everybody knows that everybody slows down when they see those lines across the road. So I don't believe it, and then my fellow residents don't believe it. It's a true safety risk for our residents. We're concerned because this intersection, in addition to high speeds, high volume, and cut-through, has limited visibility, And because it's identified as a collector street, it is being selected for significant vehicles to use as a faster way to get where they're going. So we're having a lot of large vehicular traffic, trucks, going through our neighborhood, and it's really not suited. The roads aren't designed for it, and they're not from a pavement-wise and also from an actual maneuverability standpoint. So the traffic department, I've talked with them a million times. I've asked for stop signs. I've asked for speed bumps. And they'll tell you a million ways why anything you bring up isn't the right thing. So we're asking for something simple. It's a three-way stop at this particular intersection. I don't know, maybe the traffic department feels that it's the end of the world for stop signs to go up in this location without the kind of data that they want to see. But our residents have been speaking about this for 15 years. And it really would be the end of the world for some family if their child was hit.
Sorry to have to interrupt you. Your time has expired. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. I don't know if any of you remember me, probably not. My name is Barbara McTighe, and I'm also from McCarty Point. And I represent a group that couldn't be here this evening. Their names are Eli and Nolan and Sarah, and a little girl by the name of Grace, and another little girl who is a Russian immigrant whose name I can't even pronounce, and she can't even speak English yet. Also Matthew and Mike and Jack and Stephen. And this group of children stand on our corners in the morning and in the evening, coming home from school. We've had several accidents in our neighborhood, and even since the last time I was here, we had a very serious accident. A young man got behind the wheel of his car, drove down Kettlebridge, went right into a 3-ton object in the street, and moved it up on someone's lawn. Fortunately, this young man was not killed. He walked away. Airbag was deployed. He walked away even though the car was totaled. And Cary's finest turned out in numbers, 4 of them, 4 squad cars. I don't want to see them come on this type of an incident. I want Eli and Nolan and Grace and this little Russian girl to grow up, perhaps be the mayor of Cary one day. But that's what they're asking for, a chance to be safe in their own neighborhood as they wait for the bus or they get off the bus. And right now, they are not safe. And something has to be done. We are prepared to do what we have to do as a neighborhood to get our point across. But in the words of a very famous philosopher by the name of Mr. Rogers, won't you be my neighbor? Won't you do something to protect the lives of our children? I was so glad to see that in our budget, there's excess money. A stop sign costs about $350 a piece. Isn't there room for a few more stop signs? Can't you do that for us? Won't you be my neighbor? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello. My name is Erica Bartolucci. I live at 302 Kettlebridge Drive in Picardy Point with Barbara and Marguerite and some of my other fellow neighbors that are here this evening. And I live right at the intersection of Kettlebridge and Glen Buckley. And I have 3 very small children, and I'm very, very concerned for their safety. I have a 5.5-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 7-month-old baby. And I'm scared to check my mailbox. I think a stop sign would really, the 3-way stop would have such an impact on this road and for our community, and it would really just slow down the traffic of the folks that fly down Kettlebridge, and I really, really would implore you to allow a stop sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name's Thomas Magnani. I'm from Old Salem. So I'm talking about the West High rezoning. And going back for 4 speakers, I agree with them. The problem boils down to one of infrastructure. This community that they want to build has a fortunate or unfortunate characteristic of being on both Cary and Apex's areas. And I think both towns have to get together and fix the infrastructure, be it roads or traffic or some way to get to Davis. I mean, Salem Church is nice. The not having a stoplight where Salem Church hits Davis is going to get someone killed if it hasn't already. And I'd like the towns to work together to find an answer. The towns are looking for tax revenue and homes, but I think you have to do it in the best and safest manner possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Terry, and I'm here to talk about the Chapel Hill Lake Drive rezoning, and I am the person that sent out the email regarding asking you to take it back through planning and zoning. I did that because I thought that was the only way I could get the conditions that we're looking for documented in the rezoning case that would come before the town council. I've since spoken with the applicant, and we're going to meet, as I believe that's Deborah, who spoke with you and mentioned that I had talked with her. I misunderstood how the process works. I'm learning a lot. But I believe, based upon my conversations today and yesterday with the applicant, that we're going to be able to work out the conditions that we need, and we'll have it done, fingers crossed, by November 5th, which is the required date that we have to have it 10 days prior to your next council meeting. So thank you very much for supporting my request, but I'm going to ask that you go ahead with tabling it, and hopefully we'll have the conditions documented. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please take your time.
Gimpy.
Hurry up.
Some people
take all day.
People take so long.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jason Barron. It occurred to me as I was sitting there requesting that this case be tabled that I might get a sympathy vote tonight, so it was probably a mistake. But you guys know me well enough to know I'll probably never get a sympathy vote anyways. Here to speak with respect to 14 RAZ 19, which is the West High South rezoning. Just want to make a couple of points. First, we've requested that this case be tabled, or deferred rather, until the November 19th meeting so we can continue working with staff related to a condition seeking to preserve the historic home that's on the site. We submitted a condition. Staff has responded with suggested language regarding that condition, and we're still working on that final language. That is essentially the genesis for our requesting that this case be deferred. A couple of comments were made by previous speakers during Public Speaks Out that I want to address. First, with respect to the Collector Street, it's a requirement of the land development ordinance of the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. We're going to be required to construct it per Town of Cary standards to a Collector Street standard. Not only that, the Town of Apex also shows it as a Collector Street on their plans. So we have a companion zoning case that's working its way through the Town of Apex's process. Their standards are going to require the same thing. So there shouldn't be any concern with respect to it being designed to a Town of Cary Collector Street standard. Second, I agree. There is an infrastructure problem. The folks who live in that area have an infrastructure problem. And honestly, I think that's the real benefit of this case. This case is seeking to resolve that significant infrastructure problem. Now, we're not going to stand up and pretend that we can deliver the connection from West High to Davis. If we could, we would. I think that would make everybody's concerns go away, but we can't do that. But what we can do is, Standard Pacific Homes, or Cal Atlantic now, who's what their name is, they have managed to get control of property that fronts on Salem Church Road. That's going to provide additional point south. That's going to relieve pressure from the existing neighborhoods. It is going to add to the public infrastructure that is currently lacking in that area. Second, and most importantly, they've committed to constructing and installing a signal at Cary Parkway and West High. That will provide a significant public infrastructure benefit that is currently lacking. We have done a traffic study. We've done a signal warrant analysis. We've updated that warrant analysis. We've shared it with DOT. DOT, and I agree, DOT says we will not warrant signals based upon traffic that is to come. The traffic has to be there in order for the signal to warrant. However, we provided our warrant analysis that includes our traffic from our development. DOT reviewed that warrant analysis and agreed with the findings from that warrant analysis. So one of the speakers mentioned, it's only the developer who's up here speaking in favor of this case and they don't want to take our word for it. I understand the skepticism. I understand that those folks might have been told there was going to be a connection from West High to Davis Drive that never occurred, and we're sympathetic to that. All I can say to those folks, as well as you all, is DOT controls that signal, and DOT has reviewed our warrant analysis and has said we agree with it, and that when it warrants, we're going to construct and install it, and we have a condition to that effect. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mayor and members of the council, my name's Tom Beebe, and I want to speak on two things very quickly. Chapel Hill Road, we have been meeting with the Homeowners Association. We're going to meet with them again tomorrow. I have confidence that we will work acceptable conditions out with them and ask that you table this so we don't have to go back through P&Z. P&Z did look at it, albeit there was the mistake, but they were unanimous in their support of it. So we would ask that we just come back to you all. The second thing is West High. I have the luxury of having both of those cases. If you notice, Ross Brodbeck mentioned that he's talked with you over 2 years, a long time. He's talked to the staff. One thing he didn't say is he has talked with a developer. He's not talked with us. We've gotten stonewalled by him. If we don't, he's told us directly, if we don't have a connection to Davis and West High, they're not going to support anything there. And that's something we obviously can't deliver. And also, there was some concern from one of the neighbors in the St. James subdivision. There's nobody that benefits more from our project than St. James and Old Salem by our delivery of that connection to Salem Church Road. Not only is our traffic not going to St. James, Old London Way, but there's no reason for Old Salem, 100-plus houses, to go up through and down through St. James subdivision when they've got a direct access out through our subdivision. If they just would look at the maps and talk with us, I think we could make it clear. We're going to help both of their projects immensely with just that one connection. You've heard a lot of the other arguments. I won't take any more time, but they've placed on us a criteria we can't meet, and then they've refused to sit down with us and discuss any other opportunities for improvement or resolution. That makes it very difficult for us to make a headway with you and with the staff. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one. So we'll close Public Speaks Out, and we'll move to public hearings. No, consent agenda, sorry. I jumped ahead. This is item 4 on your agenda. For the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, I'm going to take a moment to review the consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that one vote approves all of these items. After I read all the consent agenda items, I'm going to ask council members if they would like any of these items pulled for discussion. On the consent agenda, we have minutes, amendment to Town Code Chapter 10, cemeteries, setting public hearings for the following annexation requests: William P. Franklin, 15A19, Holly Springs Road Properties, 15A18. A rezoning request for 15 REZ 10 at 532 Walnut Street and its companion consistencies statement. Comprehensive Plan Amendment 15 CPA 01, Guernsey Trail. Rezoning request 15 REZ 04 for MS Holding property at Wilson Road and its companion consistency statement. Do council members want any of these items pulled for discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to public hearings. The same rules apply to public hearings that apply to public speaks out, with one exception. There's now 5 minutes for the speakers instead of 3. Our first public hearing is for input for our Town of Cary fiscal year 2017 annual budget. This is the second of 2 public hearings. Mr. Knapp of our staff will present this item. We're going to open the public hearing, and no action is required of council this evening. Mr. Knapp.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. October is our budget public input month. We have been giving our citizens all opportunities all month long to give their input on what should be in the budget for our next fiscal year before we start developing on that budget in November. They've had the opportunity to speak at these 2 hearings, also to send emails to the budgetinput@townofcary.org address, and to contact us through social media, through the town's Facebook and Twitter accounts. We've received several suggestions so far and are looking forward to hearing more of them tonight and through the end of the month on the 31st. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Now it's time for the public hearing for fiscal year 17 budget input, and I would invite first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? I'm going to close the public hearing, and just so everyone watching is clear, we've changed this a couple of years ago where we get input on the front end of a budget process, and that's why you're seeing it now rather than the way we used to do it, which was like in March and April, which was kind of after the fact. And we will have those public hearings in March and April and May and June. I think there's a bunch. But this is the opportunity to get that information in there earlier. Any other comments?
Well, I just comment real fast because I've had some citizens confused why we're getting input on a fiscal year 17 budget when we're still in 15, and that's not a typo. Our fiscal year starts July 1, so July 1 of 2016 will be the beginning of the fiscal year 2017.
That's right, and we're in fiscal year 16 now.
That's correct.
That's right.
Yeah, but it's confusing to citizens,
Yes.
so that's not a typo on the screen.
And it doesn't fit the calendar year, and it is very confusing.
And Mayor, if you'll allow me, I just think it's one of the most remarkable things that this council has done compared to other councils is to open up this process so early for people to give their feedback now when we can actually do something than when it's the last minute in May, right before we're trying to actually get the budget out. So for anyone who's listening, I hope they will send in, if they're not here, obviously at the public hearing, there's lots of ways to do it, over social media, email, call. Please tell us what's important to you. If we don't hear from you, we don't know, and we'll make it up at the table.
And that's a very good point. I'll just add one more comment to that the budget department is working on this year-round. And before they can really get going on the next year, they have to finish up this year. And as of tonight, we had the end of the year, and so they're now ready to go to the next year. So this is actually perfect timing for them. So thank you for bringing that up.
They used to have a little break, but they don't anymore.
Yeah, they have enough time to go. Okay. All right, very good. We're going to move to our second public hearing. It's an owner-initiated annexation petition 15A09 Standard Pacific of the Carolinas LLC. The property owner and the town residents may speak at this public hearing. Mr. Olma of the staff will present the item. We're going to open the public hearing, and council will not take any action this evening. Mr. Olma.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. This is an owner-initiated annexation for about 47 acres of property and 1 acre of adjacent right-of-way located west of Highway 55, south of Indian Wells, and north of Morrisville Parkway. The property is in our ETJ and zoned transitional residential conditional use. This annexation request is associated with a subdivision plan, which is in review, and that proposes a mix of about 60 townhomes and 80 single-family detached lots. As the mayor mentioned, no action is needed tonight, but the public hearing would occur, and then action would occur once that subdivision plan is ready. I'll turn it over to you for the hearing.
Very good. If the applicant's here, we'll entertain comments from the applicant.
My name's Tom Beebe, Standard Pacific Homes, and I just ask that you support this. I'm not going to take your time. This was zoned a while back, and it's an age-restricted product that we're developing for this, and much needed in Cary as we all get older. So I just ask that you support it.
Thank you, Mr. Beebe. You seem to be a very busy man these days. Now's the time for public hearing for annexation petition 15A09, and I would invite our first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at the public hearing? Okay, we'll close the public hearing, open it up to council members for questions or comments. We have none. Thank you, Mr. Ullman. We now move to our third public hearing. It's the owner-initiated annexation petition 15A14 Ridgefield Farms. The property owner and the town residents may speak at this public hearing. Mr. Ullman will once again present this item. We'll open the public hearing, and council once again will not take action this evening. Mr. Ullman.
This annexation request covers about 80 acres of property on Ridgefield Drive on the east side of Green Level Church Road and north of McCrimmon. The zoning is residential 8, conditional use, and it is in our extraterritorial jurisdiction. The property is part of a new subdivision which proposes a total of 144 lots. Turn it back over to you, Mayor, for the hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Ullman. At this time, I'd invite the applicant forward if they would like to make comments.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Adam Ashbaum with L-Star Management. As Jeff mentioned, we are hoping to open and close the public hearing tonight and then ask you to act on this a month from now or so when we're closer to site plan approval. So if you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Now it's time for a public hearing for annexation petition 15A14 Ridgefield Farms, and I would invite our first speaker forward. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, open it up to council members for questions or comments. We have none. Thank you, Mr. Ulmer, for that item. We're going to move to our fourth item under public hearings, and it's once again an owner-initiated annexation petition 15A13 Howard Family Property. The property owner and town residents may speak, and Mr. Ulmer will once again introduce the item. We're going to have a public hearing, and once again, we will not take action on this item this evening. Mr. Ulmer.
This final annexation public hearing is for 6.14 acres and 1 acre of right-of-way north of Carpenter Fire Station Road. It is in our ETJ and also zoned transitional residential conditional use. A 16-lot subdivision is under review, and you can now conduct a public hearing.
Okay. If the applicant's here and would like to speak, I would invite them forward for their comments. Not here. Okay. We'll open up the public hearing for owner-initiated annexation petition 15A13 Howard Family Property, and I would invite our first speaker forward. I see no one. We'll close the public hearing, open it up to council members for questions or comments. Once again, we have no questions or comments. Thank you, Mr. Ulma.
Thank you.
We'll now move to public hearing number 5. It's a public hearing for rezoning requests for Purse property. We're going to hear staff's report. Allow the applicant to explain the request and conduct a public hearing. Council will not take action on this item tonight. Instead, we're going to refer it to our Planning and Zoning Board for their recommendation. Introducing this item is Ms. Granite.
Thank you. Good evening. If this property looks familiar, it's because you approved a rezoning on the property last year. It's approximately 73.17 acres, located south of Luter Shop Road off of White Oak Church Road. Subject property is designated on the land use plan as low-density residential and very low-density residential. The existing zoning is residential 40 conditional use. The existing zoning conditions limit the use to detached residential and neighborhood recreation. There are also conditions that provide for a Cary Greenway easement and buffers that exceed LDO standards along the western property line. The proposed zoning is not to take away from any of those previously approved zoning conditions, but to simply apply the Conservation Residential Overlay District to the property, something that the applicant had put down on their application. We didn't catch it. It wasn't in the staff report. And when they submitted their site plan for review, they were told by staff that they needed to get this overlay in place. Property owners were notified of the request. Staff has not heard any comment or feedback from the community. Just wanted to point out one other item. Mr. Yerha raised a question
When this first came before you, the parent parcel included a house that was designated as a historic structure. The property has been subdivided and is currently vacant. There are no historic structures on the property. As this moves forward, we'll clarify that in the staff report and make sure that that's clear. And this concludes staff's presentation.
Very good. At this time, I would invite the applicant forward to hear their remarks.
Good evening, mayors and members of council. My name is Glenda Top with Glenda S. Top and Associates. I don't have anything to add. Ms. Grannon did an excellent job. Just 2 points. We did have a neighborhood meeting that was held here. No one attended except the applicant. And the property was subdivided because Mr. Peirce wants to maintain his residence.
Okay.
And we're here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Now's the time for a public hearing for the Peirce property, and that's rezoning 15 REZ 20, and I would invite our first speaker forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing, open it up to council members for questions or comments. Seeing none, we're going to forward this request to our Planning and Zoning Board for their recommendation. We now move to our sixth public hearing, 5.6. It's a rezoning request at O'Kelly Chapel Road Daycare and Office rezoning with preliminary development plan. We're going to hear a staff report. We're going to allow the applicant to explain the request, conduct a public hearing. We will not take action tonight. Instead, we'll refer to the Planning and Zoning Board for their recommendation. Ms. Grannon will once again introduce the item.
Thank you. This is for property located at 7421 O'Kelly Chapel Road and 10,925 Green Level Church Road on approximately 3.74 acres. Subject property is shown here at the intersection on the south side of O'Kelly Chapel Road. And an aerial view shows the subject property. The land use plan designation is a combination of mixed, medium density residential, and a small area of parks and open space. The existing zoning is a combination of residential 40, and a small portion of the property is PDD major. The applicant has proposed to remove that centerpiece from the PDD and to zone the property MXD, mixed use district. And with the mixed use district comes the requirement for a preliminary development plan, which gives you a clear indication of what is being proposed on the property and where it's proposed to be located. To summarize the plan, the applicant is seeking an 8,300 square foot daycare center, a 13,300 square foot two-story office building, buffers and streetscapes which are consistent with LDO standards. And there are also several modifications requested, which I'll summarize in this presentation. This site is slightly impacted by a stream buffer according to our most current GIS maps, and field determination will be required at the time of the full development plan review. Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan identifies a greenway trail on the subject property, and the applicant has proposed that as part of the preliminary development plan. The site has frontage on both O'Kelly Chapel Road and on Green Level Church Road, which are existing major thoroughfares. There is a proposed transit route along Green Level Church Road. There was a traffic impact analysis required, and the summary of those findings are contained within your staff report. The applicant did not propose to address all the suggested mitigations that were in the traffic impact analysis, but they did propose to address several of the items. At O'Kelly Chapel Road and Green Level Church Road, providing an eastbound receiving and through lane on one side of the intersection, as specified by the Town of Cary and DOT, and modifications to an existing traffic signal to account for the required road widening with the site. They've also proposed at the site entrances number 1 and number 2 to provide ingress and egress lanes that were restricted to right turns only. This is a picture again of the preliminary development plan to help identify those modifications to town standards that I mentioned. One point is fairly minor, but They wanted to make sure that they wouldn't run into any obstacles at the time of site plan, and that's their community gathering area, or a portion of their community gathering area has a slight, very, very slight impact into the streetscape buffer. This is something that they're well within their rights to ask for. They're still providing a 30-foot streetscape buffer along O'Kelly Chapel Road. The streetscape buffer along Green Level Church Road would contain a greenway, a multi-use trail, which is a permitted use, but then to have this little gathering area, a portion of that into that buffer, they needed to make that request at this time. Also, the multi-use trail and the buffer adjacent to the southern property line has the potential of a champion tree. It has not been finalized. They did an initial tree survey, but they have not had an arborist report, so we're not sure what the health of the tree is. But if it does come back that it's a healthy tree, it would impact the location of that multi-use trail if they're not able to remove that. So they're seeking a modification to that as well. Also, they're seeking an increase in LDO parking standards by 6.9%, which is something that staff could take into consideration, but as part of this process, they could ask council to consider that as well. And as I mentioned, the stamped concrete gathering area, a portion of which encroaches into that 30-foot streetscape. Finally, they have requested a modification to the requirement to extend the reclaimed water line to an off-site location. They are proposing to connect the water line adjacent to the wellness center that's to the west of the property, and they are proposing to install the reclaimed water line along their entire property frontage. But during the review of the preliminary development plan, staff asked for them to provide for an off-site routing to the reclaimed water line to the east, and they've asked for council to consider waiving that requirement. This map shows you the notification that was mailed out to property owners within 800 feet of the subject property. We received feedback from 2 citizens in the way of either emails or phone calls. One citizen was concerned that there is a number of existing daycare centers already in the vicinity of the property, and then a second citizen was concerned about traffic impacts and not wanting to see any further development. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant's available, and following the public hearing, I will be too to answer your questions.
Thank you. At this time, I invite the applicant forward for their remarks.
Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Patrick Perez. I work at Mulkey Engineers. I'm here to represent West Cary Holdings, owner and developer of the subject property. Just one main quick clarification I'd like to add to Deborah's summary, which was very good. As you can see from the plan above, we proposed a whole lot of improvements out in the right-of-way. 4 lanes along O'Kelly Chapel Road and 2 lanes along Green Level Church. One of the suggestions in the TAR was to extend Green Level Church Road further down to the south. We feel, and at the bottom of the justification letter, which wasn't included in the package, it states our point that we pretty much have done all that we feel like we can do as far as public improvements out in front and along our property. We just feel like that was too far for us to go and that it didn't meet what we were able to do. And additionally, we have 2 lanes provided across Green Level Church here to the east to allow for safe traffic all the way through. So we feel like we've done all that we feel like we've done all that we can do. If you have any more questions, let me know.
Okay, thank you. Now it's time for the public hearing. Rezoning request 15 REZ06. It's the O'Kelly Chapel Hill Road daycare and office rezoning, and I would invite our first speaker forward.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the council. My name is Matthew Boyer. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association of Hortons Creek, which is the subdivision that's directly abuts the property to the south. I think our general feeling is that clearly was not going to stay a residentially zoned area, given it's less than 4 acres, and the use seems like a practical use of the space. The biggest concern that residents have had, obviously, is around privacy. As you can see, there are 4 residential homes that abut the property, as well as the open space showing there is our community pool. Again, given the buffers in place, hopefully that will mitigate some of that risk, but just ask the consideration is given to the number of trees and especially with the greenway being there and what's removed. And obviously our preference will be to keep as much as possible, particularly given that can't really see here, but the topography of the property is that this sits much higher than our pool and the residence. So a lot of concern is around this 2-story building and the ability of folks to see out of the 2nd floor of that building into residents' homes, as well as the community pool. Finally, I think the preliminary plans, as I've seen here, show a privacy fence on the west end of the property. That would probably tie in with the existing privacy fence that UNC Wellness was asked to put behind their eastern end of their property, which is the west end of our development. We would just ask for consideration that privacy fence also be extended along the south border of this development to protect, again, the privacy of those single-family homes as well as our pool, consistent with what the Wellness Center did for the western side of our property. Otherwise, again, I have a hunch that the feedback about too many daycares was one of my neighbors who also gave me that feedback, asking, to which I said there's not much I can do about that, so people are going to do what they need to do. But again, I think, given the space and the plans, it seems like a pretty reasonable plan otherwise. But again, privacy being our biggest concern. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing, open it up to council members for questions or comments. Yes.
I have a question. I'm just a little bit confused why such a small project would have this dedicated right turn lane, and I'm having a hard time seeing, but the road ultimately has 2 lanes in each direction. So is this just a temporary fix for a while until all of the roadway is widened out to have 4 lanes, or is this the forever solution?
It's O'Kelly Chapel Road in this section is going to be a 6-lane median divided roadway. So the outside lane, right turn lane, will temporarily be a right turn lane until we can get an additional through lane going eastbound to make it 3 lanes going totally all the way to NC 55.
It's Green Level Church Road.
The Green Level Church Road. Again, there is a small section of in front of Hortons Creek, in front of their pool, that we've asked the applicant, and it showed up in the traffic study, that it should be extended so that we could get 2 full lanes going southbound on Green Level Church Road. That was what they referred to earlier, just something that they couldn't undertake, but it did show up in the traffic study. But the goal is to have two through lanes going all the way down. And we will pretty much have it if we could fill in that missing gap all the way down.
What's the distance of that missing gap?
It's about 300 to 400 feet.
So it's not very much.
It's 1 lane wide with curb. They'd have to have curb and gutter.
It just seems extensive to have the applicant put in this. If you go back to that one slide right before this, that pretty substantial looking pattern there. And I don't know if that's just painted on, or if that's actually like a median. I don't know what the shade-in area reflects versus the...
Yeah, it'll actually be painted.
It'll be painted.
Yeah, so we could remove it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I mean, when these kind of situations arrive where you have 300 feet that keep a road from being the full 4-lane cross-section for a pretty substantial distance. I mean, now that if this was completed, it would be from O'Kelly Chapel all the way down south of Cary Park, right?
It'd be just short of McCrimmon. There is one property there that wasn't widened, but that would.
Okay.
We've got Ridgefield Farms restriping that whole length. They offered a condition to restripe some of those right turn lanes that were already built into developments. That's going to be a full 2 lanes going all the way down, but it will bottleneck down there at McCrimmon until there's another project.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the land that's immediately south of the Ashton Woods project that Rayburn?
Correct, yeah.
Got it. Okay. All righty. Well, in that case, I don't know if it's worthwhile, but it just seems like it's such a small segment. Mm-hmm. If we don't think that the application, this project is big enough, it seems like maybe the town needs to step up and get involved. But why didn't we require Hortons Creek to do this in the first place when they built?
That I don't know at that time. There was just a missing gap there. They widen in front of the subdivision, but they did in front of the pool area.
That's so weird. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for answering those questions. I'm glad it's not a median. It looked like from the drawing, I thought maybe it was a big median. I was like, that's kind of crazy. But, okay.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I just have one. The gathering area seems unusual to me. Was that a applicant suggestion, a staff suggestion? It's at the corner of a 6-lane road.
It's not unlike what you see by the Jimmy John's restaurant over by the Lowe's Home Improvement Center, where there's a little
I
gathering
never
area.
see anyone gather there.
Oh.
I mean,
That's where I go all the time.
do you? Is there anybody with you?
No. No witnesses. No, but it's right adjacent to the Greenway Trail.
I don't know. I don't know. Is it something that we've decided is a good idea? I just have never seen people gather at the side of a 6-lane intersection for fun.
Yeah. So there's the bench, right?
And there's nothing there. It's not like there's an ice cream store and I'm going to gather, hey, I'm
Yeah.
going to take my ice cream and sit. I mean, it's...
And watch the cars go by.
And what, yeah, I mean, why are we doing, is this...
It's a transit route. They might be waiting for the bus.
Yeah,
Is there a bus stop there?
it is a requirement per the LDO to have a certain amount of open space that's above and beyond regulatory open space. I believe the requirement is 600 square feet. The applicant's actually proposing double that amount as part of this plan. So they've got a good bit of open space on the site above and beyond the required buffers. So it's something that they, offered as a place to, as you're on the Greenway Trail, maybe stop and...
Yeah, I guess I would rather move the buildings a little bit closer to the street, or put the gathering place over by the daycare where people might actually sit, or put the gathering place closer to the office where people might, but I don't know, I can't imagine anybody going out there to have their lunch as the 6-lane traffic goes by. Maybe we need to look again at the LDO, but it looks like a waste of a good opportunity. And you're looking at me like...
No, I think it's funny because it's true. But it's not something that stuck out at me right away, but I'm glad it resonated with you.
Anyway, it would be nice for that applicant to...
There is a park bench. I would just mention there's a park bench at the corner of High House and Maynard.
Yes.
5 lanes against 4 lanes. Yeah, up against
Yeah, but that's the beginning of a trailhead into the Greenway.
Right. Well,
a main Greenway. This is like along a street.
Yeah, but that's a multi-use path that will hit that multi-use trail.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone there either.
Just saying it's there.
Mr. Yerhoff.
Deborah Grannon.
Just a couple other things. I would hope by the time we see this again, there will be a resolution to the champion tree issue. If it is a healthy champion tree, I hope one goes as far out of one's way as one can to save it, but we don't know how healthy that tree is at this point. And I would like a better explanation by the time we see this again, or by the time it goes to P&Z, regarding the exemption for the reclaimed water line. Hopefully there's a good reason why
the applicant's available if you would like to hear from them, because it's their request.
Explanation now, that would be wonderful.
Those are actually the 2 questions I'm going to follow up after we hear from the applicant about the water line.
At the very end.
Again, the reclaimed water line we felt like was so far off-site and was an off-site improvement that, again, economically we didn't feel like we could handle.
Is that your property? I guess it is.
Which property? The across the way there?
The off-site.
Well, the triangular piece we actually also own as well, but it's not part of this project.
Is that developable? Is it big enough to do anything?
We're hoping eventually, but we haven't gotten that far yet. We're just focused on this.
That would help answer my question of why, if nothing's going to develop there, then somebody's got to pay for that water line. But if something's going to develop, then why not wait for the water line?
Yeah, but it's his project. He owns the land.
I know, but it's not part of this project, that triangle, right? Yeah, or am I misunderstanding something?
Across the street is not part of this.
You're an ownership.
That's correct. That's correct.
You own the property.
Our developers do, yes.
And if that's going to develop later, then I would think that would be when you connect. But
yeah.
But anyway. Right, but if not, taxpayers will wind up paying for it.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
That was the question I had. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Then my other question, I want to follow up a little bit on the comments about the topography and the champion tree, and what kind of buffer are we going to have to the south? It's not like uses, so I'm assuming it'll be type A, type B?
Let's see, I believe they have proposed an A buffer. Let me just double check here. Yes, they've proposed a type A buffer to the south.
And I wonder how much, I saw the aerial photo, I wonder how much of that tree line is mature enough to deal with the topography, and then the next question is, how big of a change in topography are we talking about?
Yeah, we'll have to do some research on that. I've been out to the site. There are some changes to the topography that are very, very obvious, but I'll have to get some more
And
information.
the office proposal is two
stories.
stories, but the daycare is one?
1 story.
Okay, so that's next to the pool.
The daycare is the 8,300 square
Right.
foot 1 story. The office, 2-story office building is adjacent to the property where the swimming pool is.
And I'm trying to address the topography concerns. That's why I asked. So the residents are
The
aware.
engineer can probably give you some more information on the topo.
Yeah, I would like to add one piece to that. Yes, the grading plan as we have it now, it's not part of the package, but the 2 buildings will sit lower than the road. And they will probably sit about 5 to 10 feet above that cul-de-sac that's down there at the bottom of the single-family subdivision. So
what will the floor?
The finished floor, the bottom floor.
Okay.
I mean, the topography as it is now, from that cul-de-sac all the way up to O'Kelly Chapel and Green Level Church is probably 30 feet, maybe 25 feet in rise. And so we're going to chop down into that so we sink the buildings lower. So we're not just perching them up on top to overlook everything. So
And help me understand what kind of tree line is there between that proposed path where the champion tree is?
along the south side. It's a mature tree line.
Okay.
It's not young.
So you might have to supplement that, but pretty
Absolutely.
much. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's the only question I had. Thank you.
Okay, so I had questions about that as well. So the neighbors to the south are asking for a privacy fence. Is that something that the applicant can offer as a rezoning condition
If they choose to, correct, right.
Okay. My request is that you would convey to, in case the citizens don't have the opportunity to speak to the P&Z board, that you would convey that that's what the residents are asking for is a good buffer and preservation of some of those trees and a privacy fence along the southern side. And what would be helpful, I think, for the P&Z board members as well as us is like a little diagram that shows us the side topography so we can see how the road and then the buildings and this buffer relate to the homes that exist.
Okay.
I don't think that'd be that hard for you to do, but I think that'd be very helpful to P&Z and then to us as it comes back to us, especially in light of the concerns that the neighbors have.
And a little reassurance for you, too, because this is the MXD process with a preliminary development plan. It's a requirement for a second public hearing before the P&Z board. I think it's safe to assume there might be some modifications to the plan, but regardless, it will have a second public hearing.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have no concerns really with what's proposed so far at all. I don't see a privacy issue with the daycare and the homes. They're on the other side of a sidewalk, a greenway, trees and everything else. The 2-story office building overlooking a pool is the closest use to it. Is not an issue for me. I'm not really a big fan of fences next to greenways. That tends to hinder access for folks. I'd be curious to know how this neighborhood would get to that greenway if that was the case. I would tend to agree that the gathering area at the corner is kind of dumb, but if it's required, it's required. Honestly, if you wanted to do away with that, I don't care.
Looks nice.
If you want to put those dollars towards something that other folks might find more valuable, I'm cool with that. I think it's a good use of the property. Cary's a place for lots of families. I don't know that we have too many daycares.
Okay. Other comments? All right. Very good. Good discussion. And this will be forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Board for their recommendation. Thank you for all your help. We now move to our last public hearing. Public hearing number 7. It's a rezoning request for South Harrison Avenue. We're going to hear a staff report. We're going to allow the applicant to explain the request. We're going to conduct a public hearing. We will not take action tonight, and we will refer this to the Planning and Zoning Board. Ms. Chandler will introduce this item.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This case is both a comprehensive plan amendment and a rezoning request for property in downtown Cary, about 0.44 acres. The site is located at the southwest corner of Harrison Avenue and Park Street. Notification of the plan amendment and rezoning request was sent to properties shown in yellow on this map, the properties within 800 feet. As per our current GIS maps, there are no stream buffers or floodways within the property. There are several proposed street side trails within a quarter mile of this site. And South Harrison Avenue is a minor thoroughfare, and West Park Street is a collector street. And another convenient thing about this site, there are 4 different C-Tran routes accessible at the train depot. As per the Town Center Area Plan, the current land use designation is high-intensity mixed use, and that signifies a mix of uses, medium to high-density residential, commercial, and/or office. The applicant proposes to change the land use to cottage, business, and residential. That is both a residential and low-intensity commercial office district. What's unique about cottage, business, and residential is that no matter if it's residential or non-residential, the character must look residential and blend into the surrounding neighborhood. The zoning is town center because it's in the Town Center Area Plan. And in the Town Center Area Plan, we have zoning subdistricts. And the current zoning subdistrict matches the current land use, which is high-intensity mixed use. And the proposed zoning subdistrict, again, matches the proposed land use, cottage, business, and residential. That concludes staff's presentation.
Just a point of clarification, you showed the notification map. Is this one that's after the legislation and we don't have protest petitions?
That is correct.
So this will be the first one without protest petitions. Thank you very much, legislature. Thank you. That was my question.
Don't know that anybody be protesting.
Yeah, you're right. At this time, I'd invite the applicant forward to explain the request.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Brandon Moore. I'm a landscape architect. I work at the site group, and we're based on 1111 Oberlin Road in Raleigh. I'm here on behalf of Lonnie Schroka and Joseph Huddy. They're the owners of the property. They've owned the property for over 14 years. It's been used for as a residential rental facility for that time. They're looking to redevelop and do something new on the property. And HMXD is too intensively used for what they have in mind. The site's relatively small. It has topographic constraints. The uses on that block are more consistent with the CBNR, and they would like to rezone the property so that it fits in with the character, and it's something that they can work on themselves rather than selling it to somebody who wants to put in a high-intensity development. I don't think I have anything else to add other than we're here for questions, and the owners are here as well. Thank you.
I think you might get questions, so after the public hearing. Okay. Now it's time for the public hearing for a comprehensive plan amendment 15 and rezoning 15 REZ 18 and 15 CPA 08, and I would invite our first speaker to the podium. Seeing no one, will close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions or comments. Mr. France.
Just comments, really. I actually attended the first neighborhood meeting where this went through. I was kind of curious, wanted to sit in the back and just listen, and pretty much everybody that was at that meeting was really thrilled with the proposal, and they actually felt like this one parcel being zoned HMXD was probably a mistake back when TCAP was done. Everything else around here is low-density, single-family residential. We actually just had 2 new homes constructed right next to it that actually sold before they were even completed. So this doing a cottage business and residential product would really stay within the character and charm of the surrounding community, would bring something new, that wouldn't stick out like a sore thumb. Because, right now you can put an apartment complex or something on this as well, and the neighbors clearly do not want that. Yes, we want density in our downtown, but there's a right place for that. So I believe it has the support of the community, the property owners, staff, and others, and I look forward to it.
Okay. Mr. Yerha.
Yeah, on the surface, this is a great rezoning and plan amendment. I mean, it's in a block with other cottage business, just as Mr. France said. I think it's even more appropriate to be a cottage business than what it is today. And it's a lower intensity. What we need to mention is that the property now contains a contributing structure to our downtown historic district. And if that structure was going to be reused as a cottage business, boy, I think that would be absolutely wonderful. So I would support that. But if, and I don't know if it's appropriate to even talk about that now, but if the use was to somehow get rid of that house or raise it, whatever, then I certainly would have trouble supporting it.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Very good. This will be forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Board for their consideration and recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
We now move to discussion items. Earlier this evening, before we even had an agenda, we reviewed Chapel Hill Road and Lake Drive rezoning 15RE05.
Let's do it again.
Since that time, we've heard from the applicant that would, now I'm getting confused, I think the applicant wanted it to be tabled, and a resident that represents, I don't know how many they represent, also wanted it to be tabled and not go back to P&Z. Those are the only things that have changed since we discussed it last.
And based on Ms. Terry's request to have it tabled, I move that we table it to the November 19th council meeting.
A second.
Motion is second.
You just deja vu. You're a step ahead of us.
Discussion.
I don't know I can support this.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Let's see. The consistency statement is also tabled. The West High rezoning was tabled with the consistency statement. That takes us to item 6.5, Cocoa Booth Amphitheater 2016 Management Plan and Budget. Mr. Collins will present the item, and council may take action. Mr. Collins.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I bet you didn't expect to see us at 8:15 tonight.
I'm delighted to see you at I just want to go over a few highlights of the staff report. I'm sure that you've all fully digested it, but there are a couple of things that I'd just like to make sure. And the first thing I want to let you know is that the current projected subsidy, which was projected when we wrote the staff report, was $120,168, has now improved, and it is currently projected at $103,375. So that is good news, and it marks the lowest subsidy that the amphitheater has had in its operating budget since 2012. So I'm very happy and excited about that. You will notice that we are still requesting an approved budgeted subsidy of $233,227 for next season, but that is consistent with the approach that we've taken to present a conservative budget so that we're not caught with surprises. And our track record, I think you'll see, as you see, is pretty good at beating our projected budgets, but we always like to approach it from a conservative standpoint. Also, just other quick highlights, the promoted concerts this year. We were anticipating doing 15. We were unfortunately not able to hit that number. However, the budget still was over $75,000 above last year's record-setting promoted concert amounts and beat budget by $40,000, even though we didn't have the number we thought we were going to have. So it was a great year. Our average attendance at those concerts was just under 4,000. Summerfest with the North Carolina Symphony was also, I would categorized successful. We were celebrated the 15th season at that. We were fortunate to have a number of people who were instrumental in the facility existing, particularly Mayor Cocoa Booth, former Mayor Booth, and former Mayor Glenn Lang. So it was very nice to be able to celebrate in that way. There was a 12% decline in attendance. We were weather impacted a little bit, but nevertheless, that attendance was still 27% higher than our historic averages for Summerfest. And the overall subsidy was significantly less than budgeted. So I characterize that also as a success. Just highlight quickly the festivals that we had this year. We have the Diwali Festival. First time it's rained in a number of years at Diwali. However, we still had almost 9,000 people there, and it was a very popular event. The Dragon Boat Festival is the second year we've had that, and attendance just exploded for that, with over 7,500 attendees over the course of the day, when we had like 2,000 last year. So that was another really positive aspect. Two new things. Well, one new thing this year and one new thing we're anxiously anticipating. The Oktoberfest, despite rain, also, we were caught a little while in a rain cycle, but I think it was. I think everyone was ultimately happy with the outcome. There's some tweaks, of course, I think we would do for future Oktoberfest, but that was another positive new endeavor. And I hope that you are all as excited as I am, and we all are, about the Chinese Lantern Festival. They will begin unloading the shipping containers with these fantastical structures probably I'd say early November, and then it will take a few weeks to set them up, but that festival will get underway right after Thanksgiving and go through New Year's, and we're super excited about it. Also, in the management plan, I did note, or in the staff report, I did note that sound levels this year, we had been very fortunate and had not received a single sound level complaint. I do have to amend that now, because we did receive a sound level complaint on October 15th at the Chris Tomlin concert. So we did have one complaint this year. That complaint actually came from a location that was almost 3 miles away from the venue, and we didn't get complaints from the surrounding areas. So it's just a factor of how sound travels. It's we just you can't predict how sound will travel. That's the lesson we took away from that. Just a quick note on social media. Social media is really becoming a significant aspect of the amphitheater. We have over 65,000 individuals that are signed up to receive weekly e-blasts from the facility, and that's up 12% from last year. There's been a 21% increase in Facebook likes, and we're now reaching over 20,000 people through Facebook. We have more than 2,700 Twitter followers, which is an increase of 25% over last year. And our Instagram account, which was new last year, has increased by almost 200%. So we're making good use, I think, of social media, which, of course, I think is an financial savings as well, because we reach people in a far more cost-effective way. There are capital requests that you can read. I don't think anything terribly significant. A total capital request of $47,500. And Public Works has submitted its operation and maintenance budget. A few projects that we want to do to maintain the facility. Probably the most sort of unusual one is to winterize the bathrooms on the Crescent, which we are doing to accommodate the Chinese Lantern Festival. There is one other item I need to call the Council's attention that's a significant change from when the management plan was submitted, and that is that our longtime General Manager, Becky Caldwell, has accepted a position to move to Los Angeles, California. And so we are wishing Becky the very best in this wonderful new opportunity she has in Los Angeles. SMG is in the process right now of vetting new general managers to bring forward for staff to review. We would anticipate that there'll be a new general manager in place by mid-January. So obviously we are very sad that Becky's leaving. Wish her the best and happy for her new opportunity. So to sum up, the staff recommendations for this year's management plan and budget for the amphitheater is for Council to approve the management plan and budget for the 2016 season, to recognize the potential risk inherent in amphitheater-promoted concerts and other special events, and authorize including such events in the outlined 2016 management plan, to authorize staff to continue working with the Symphony on plans to expand Summerfest, and recognize that $50,000 in additional support, which is the same as last year, has been incorporated into the 2015 management plan and budget. There are then 4 budget-related items that will have to be tweaked just a little bit because we have better news relative to the subsidy. But we do ask in budget item number 5 that Council recognize that we will adjust those to reflect as the monies are moved from one fund to the other. So with that, I am happy to answer your questions.
Mr. Collins, very, very briefly, My understanding is the management plan's fiscal year is different from the town's fiscal year, which is different from the calendar year, and talk about confusion. If you could explain to those that are watching how we accommodate the subsidy. It's not coming out of the general fund. It's a budgeted piece. If you could just
It is because of the way because of the amphitheater season. We like to keep the budget to reflect the full season rather than to cut it up in the middle like our fiscal year does. So the budget office does make a provisional allocation at the July 1st time period. They make a provisional allocation and a provisional, sort of based on past history, and then they adjust and move the monies into the appropriate accounts when the actual numbers are known.
And anything left goes back.
That's correct. And we actually returned money this year. It was a good year. So everyone was happy when we heard that. I hope you are.
Yes. Other questions, comments, or a motion?
Make a motion to approve. No comments.
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
There's a second. Discussion?
I'll just add my kudos to staff and SMG and the folks that have worked really hard to make it such a huge success. I do it every year. I'm going to go put my plug in again for more country music. We were doing really good. We had Little Big Town, the band Perry, Alan Jackson and stuff within a couple of years. Great. And this year, not so much.
We'll see what's touring, Don.
Huh?
It depends on what's touring.
I hear you. Eli Young Band, they'd be good.
He's putting in his list.
I'm writing these down.
I thought it was a great season.
It was.
And I'm really proud of our staff for their great work. And Becky, we're going to miss Becky a lot, so convey that to her.
And when you have, like Diwali, which usually draws like, 12, 14,000, and you had rain all day until 6 o'clock, and you still managed 9,000 people, that's impressive. And new events, the Oktoberfest was a hoot. If you guys didn't go, Jack, you should have gone, but you were in Ireland.
I was in Ireland.
Otherwise, you would have gone. Next year, you got to go.
We went. We did the dog races.
Judge the dogs.
Now, I tapped the keg. That was even more fun than the wiener dog race. But it was a lot of fun. There's a lot of great events. I can't wait for the Chinese lanterns. I've got family coming into town right about that time, so I'm dying to take them all over there. So great job, and please pass kudos along to SMG for all they've done.
Thank you very much, Council.
The SMG report is just fantastic.
It is.
I mean, the level of detail, every citizen should read that. They'd be proud. If we had every report like that, it would be great. So I hope Becky's replacement will continue to do something along those lines. And certainly we do wish her well.
Yeah, and since we're all doing kudos, I want to say one of the great things about the staff in general is how innovative you all have become. I mean, you're really leading the way in some of the things that we haven't done in the town of Cary proper, if you will, trying out some things, trying out the Instagram, connecting with people on Twitter, really, bringing in the drag queen bingo, things that really do reach out to a wide variety of people, so that we have the folks who enjoy the country music. We had Jim Gaffigan, who was hilarious. Packed the house. I mean, it was a really nice wide variety, so there was something there for everybody. If you wanted to go for a family event, you want to come to really scary and, see the movies, there was something for everyone, and staff did a great job making sure that everybody was covered. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Collins. We now move to item 6.6, consideration of further revisions to delegation of authority resolution. Mr. Bajork will present this item, and council may take action.
Thank you, Mayor. This is not as exciting as the Booth Amphitheater. However, in April, council amended the resolution delegating authority, and staff would recommend council approve the attached revision. Basically, it makes it more clearly defines the appeal and settlement authority that staff has.
Okay. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve staff recommendation.
Yes.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have one more item under this. No, we have two more items. Gosh, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Item number 7, one last discussion item for salary grade and title changes, exempt positions. Mr. Bajorek, once again.
Thank you, Mayor. Over the past several months, the manager's office has been working with our police, our parks, recreation, cultural resources, finance, planning departments, in addition to the development support division, looking at how we can better improve our goals of improved customer service, leadership and management, operations, strategic focus of those areas, and responsiveness to both council and our citizens. Staff has worked hard in terms of coming up with an organization that meets those goals, and we recommend that council approve the grade and title changes listed in the staff report to exempt positions to facilitate this implementation. And I would be glad to answer any questions about the restructurings that you have in front of you. I do want to say that these changes will not result in an increase in the overall salary budget.
Okay. Questions, comments, or a motion?
Motion.
Motion to approve recommendation.
I'll second.
Second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have one last discussion item. Item 6.8 was added to our agenda at the beginning. The request is a revised annexation resolution to set a public hearing for James T. and Donna D. Turner, Michael Sphere annexation 15A17. Mr. Ulma will present the item, and council may take action.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a housekeeping item at your September 24th meeting. The sufficiency determination set tonight as the public hearing for this particular annexation. It's associated with a rezoning that is coming to you at your November 19th meeting, so we need you to re-adopt or adopt the new resolution that would call specifically for the hearing on November 19th.
Okay. Questions, comments, or a motion?
A motion to approve.
A motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Ulma. We're now ready to go into closed session. Would someone like to read a motion?
Certainly. So pursuant to GS 143, 318, 11A, 1, 3, and 6, I move that we hold a closed session to consult with attorneys employed by and are retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorneys and the town, to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of appointment, or conditions of initial employment of one or more individual or prospective public officers or employees, and to prevent the disclosure of information that is made privileged or confidential by GS 143-318.10E.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're now in closed session. We'll reconvene our council meeting at this time, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion.
Were you not, Mayor, before, were you going to say anything about our session? Closed session that we just had? Remember?
So you withdraw your motion?
Sure.
Okay. We're not adjourning just yet. Council has met in closed session and received a report from a consultant on the town manager candidates. This is an ongoing process, and since we've received this information, we're going to review it, and we're going to meet at a future date, and we'll have more information at that time. Now I entertain a motion
Now I'll make
to
my
adjourn.
And I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.